Hey guys, welcome back to First Date Unsolved. This is our 10th and final episode of season 1, and we are going to end the season almost the same way that we started it, with a missing persons case. Jantel's episode has just about 200 plays so far, and that's not too shabby considering it's only been up for a month and a half. I still have not gotten any responses from her brother or her mom, but I like to think that they would be happy to know more people are hearing Jantel's story and that they would be grateful for all of you that have listened. Today, we will be talking about Sebastian Lee Mcginnis. Sebastian went by Lee, so that's how I'll be referring to him for the rest of the episode. This episode isn't going to be a long one. It's more like the bite sized Snickers you get on Halloween when you're trick or treating. It's smaller, but it's still good. I was given a lot of details on this case that I don't think should necessarily be made public yet, especially since this is still an active investigation. I'm not here to interfere in any way. I'm just, as always, just trying to create awareness and hopefully have Lee brought home. I had the pleasure of speaking with Lee's oldest brother, Mike, and his sister in law, Jacqueline. I've never met these people before, never spoken to them before our interview, other than some DMs in order to set up our interview. But I will say that Jackie seems like the kind of sister in law we would all want. Even though she isn't related to Lee by blood, she has gone so hard for him and has been there every step of the way when it comes to trying to locate Lee and getting to the bottom of what happened to him. Mike and Jackie were very open and upfront about Lee and his life. So I ask that everyone listening show the same respect that I did, because we all have skeletons and not a single one of us is perfect. Lee was born and raised in the Smyrna area of Delaware and would now be 33 years old. Lee was last spoken to on November 24th, 2022, when his brother called him to coordinate a meetup. Lee's aunt had made his favorite chocolate pudding pie for Thanksgiving, and Mike wanted to drop it off to him. No matter what Lee was going through, there isn't nothing in this world that would keep him from that pie. So when he never showed up and never, contacted Mike to claim it, Mike knew something wasn't right. A missing persons report was filed 3 days later on November 27th, and the family immediately began their own search for Lee. Lee's last known whereabouts were in the area of Smyrna that was once called Tent City. Tent City was a community of tents and makeshift housing in Smyrna, not far from Route 1. Tent City was a community of tents and makeshift housing in Smyrna, in a wooded area not far from Route 1. Tent City has since been demolished because the landowner evicted everyone due to land development plans. At the time he went missing, Lee was 5'8" and 140 pounds. He has brown eyes and brown hair with very distinctive tattoos on the top of his hands. When I post on social, I'll include a few photos of Lee, as always. And one of the photos, you'll see the tattoos on top of his hands. I can't quite make out what it is exactly, but they are very big, and it's, pretty identifiable in my opinion. But before I get any more into the circumstances surrounding Mcginnis's disappearance, I feel I need to give you more insight on his background. Lee was born in April 1990. I don't have an exact date, but that's okay. And again, he would now be 33 years old. His mom was very young when she started having kids and wasn't able to provide the most stable home for her children as they grew up. And when I say young, I mean she was 12 when she had her oldest son. No one that young is going to be able to provide for their children appropriately. So Lee and Mike's grandmother did all that she could to help raise her grandchildren. Mike described Lee as hyperactive and headstrong growing up. Life as kids was not easy for the Mcginnis siblings, and they had to do what they had to do to survive sometimes. Life on the streets led to Lee getting into a lot of trouble growing up, and he was introduced to drugs at an early age. With the drugs came issues with the law, and it's a start to a really rocky path for Lee. Not all of the trouble that he got into was drug related, though. He was a kid after all, and kids get into things. Mike chuckled a little bit when he told me that Lee got into quite a bit of trouble when they were younger. And, despite all of that, despite everything that they went through, his brother was really smart. And, when he was in school and he applied himself, he got good grades. Basketball was Lee's passion in life. He loved basketball. Mike and Jackie said that, I don't know, a few times. He loved basketball. He also loved music. He was always smiling. And he's one of those people that could always be seen wearing slides and socks. It didn't matter how hot or cold it was outside. Lee always had on his slides and socks. And of course, he also loved his family and he was great with kids. He loved kids. He didn't have any children of his own, but going through his Facebook, I found a bunch of photos of him holding his nieces and nephews, and he just looked so happy and he looked so proud to be an uncle. Jackie said that Lee had a big heart, and that's what he was really known for. If someone needed the shirt off of his back, he would gladly give it to them. He wouldn't think twice, he'd just hand it over. Lee was a loving and kind person, but, unfortunately, when drugs are involved, you're not always the same person. If you've ever loved or cared about an addict, you know how true that statement is. You know how much that hits. The person isn't a bad person. They're just being held hostage by something that is very hard to control. I am going to be honest, full upfront right now. I'll be honest and say that I used to be one of those people that judged addicts. I really did, and I feel horrible. I feel terrible for it now. There are people in my life that have fallen under that spell, and it's hard when all you can really do is hope and pray. Even beating addiction is a lifelong commitment. You don't just wake up clean one day and never have to worry about it again. If it were that easy, we probably wouldn't have any addicts. Staying sober is a full-time job, and it takes work on a daily basis. So I'm going to apologize right now, for any judgment in the past. And I hope you all can kind of, So now we're going to get a little bit into what the family believes happened to Lee. It is very sad to say, but the Mcginnis family is fully aware that at this point, they are just trying to recover his body. It is believed that Lee has passed and that this is no longer a rescue mission. There is absolutely foul play suspected here. When Mike originally filed the missing persons report back in November, he was met with a lack of enthusiasm by police. His brother was known by local law officers, and it was assumed he was just off somewhere doing something he shouldn't be doing. They knew Lee had issues with drugs. They knew he had issues with, being arrested before. They didn't take Mike's concerns seriously. Mike and his brother were thick as thieves, and he knew in his gut that something wasn't right. So he and his family immediately sprung to action. Jackie estimated that they searched the area of Tent City roughly 2 to 3 times a week for about 7 weeks total. They were there so often that the residents of Tent City started to really become irritated and even hostile towards her and the others searching for Lee. It was obvious to Jackie and Mike and, the others searching that the people in Tent City knew something and that they were purposefully sending the Mcginnis family in circles. At one point, a call was placed to Lee's phone, and instead of, ringing a few times before going to voicemail, it rang about once or twice, and then the call was declined. The family tried calling back right away, but the phone had already been shut off. Another day, Lee's license miraculously appeared on one of the trails that Jackie knew they had searched several times before. You're looking for someone, you're trying to find them, you're searching through these trees, this wooded area. You're going to cover the same ground a few times. And for this license to just appear out of nowhere, That was very suspicious to everyone looking. And even though they knew something happened, there was nothing else to accomplish in Tent City, so they eventually had to stop searching. Jackie did make an attempt to contact the state of Maryland and have their search and rescue, or SAR dogs, sent to the location where Lee was last known to be, but she didn't have much luck. But on January 11th of this year, so roughly 2 months after he was reported missing, the Smyrna police requested the SAR dogs, and they did go out to see what they could find. But unfortunately, the search didn't produce any results. Now, there are two different rumors that the family keeps hearing, and both are very possible and both are very tragic and violent. The first is that someone close to Lee and his family got into an altercation with Lee one night, and that the friend of the family stabbed Lee multiple times, killing him. The other rumor is that Lee stole from a dealer, or, beat up a dealer, ultimately stealing from him, and that the dealer killed Lee in retaliation. One constant in all of the rumors, though, is that Lee's body has likely been dumped into a marsh somewhere in lower Delaware. And even if you've only passed through that area on your way to the beaches, you've seen how many marshes there are and how large some of them can be. Especially if you're driving down Route 1, there are, I can't even count, but there are a few bridges you have to cross to go over a marsh, and they're huge. Some of them are huge. So, they kind of have an idea that he's in a marsh, but it's like, where? Where do you even start to look, right? Now, police are aware of what is being said and the rumors going around, and they have questioned people regarding Lee's disappearance, but no arrests have been made at this time. Some feel that due to Lee's past, his death and story aren't being treated as a priority. I do know that investigators will keep things close to the chest to avoid anyone being tipped off, but I'm just not sure if that's the case here. I'm really not sure of anything other than the fact that Lee's disappearance has drastically affected those closest to him, and the Mcginnis family just want to bring their brother home so that he can be laid to rest. If you have any information regarding Lee's whereabouts, please contact the Smyrna PD at 302-653-9217, and you can reference case number 58-22-25956. The lead detective working on Lee's case is Matthew Sarkissian. And, that's it for Lee's story. I told you it was going to be kind of short. Earlier I mentioned Jackie and Mike were very open, very upfront. They did tell me, they might have told me everything they know. I don't, I'm not quite sure, but there were specifics. I'll just say that there were specifics that were mentioned, and again, I don't want to interfere with any investigations. They were kind of told not to communicate with a podcast or news outlet of any kind. Listen, I'm not here to tell anybody how to do their job. I'm just here to do mine, right? And again, this is episode 10 of season 1. I am already working on stuff for season 2. Not a lot of unsolved so far. I'm still trying to anchor down. I'm trying to anchor down interviews. I have had some cases brought up to me by more than one person on more than one occasion, and I am in communication with family members regarding those cases. It's exciting for me, obviously, because this is my podcast. This is something I'm trying to put out into the world, but it's, these are stories that people want to know. These are stories and cases that people want to hear about. If they're already aware of what happened, they want to know more. And I think that's a good thing to me personally. I think that's a good thing. I am also going to suck it up and get on TikTok. I will be covering basically the cases that I've already spoken about in season 1. I'm just going to do, little TikTok versions of them. I am not excited about that at all. I don't like TikTok personally. It gives me a headache. It's overstimulating. It's just too much. But I know TikTok like can make or break someone basically, like, well, I don't know if that's the appropriate term, but if you blow up on TikTok, you blow up. And I don't, as an individual, I don't want to blow up. I just want the podcast to get as much views or listens as possible. So I'm going to have to just bite the bullet and just go with it, I guess. So if you're on TikTok, oh gosh, I can't even say TikTok. If you're on TikTok, be on the lookout for that. Again, I appreciate everybody's support. I appreciate all the listens, all the comments I get, all the text messages from people who know me personally. I am so grateful for all of you. I've been told this is a really good thing that's being done, and I feel the same way. I'm really really proud of what I have going on. Um I am in communication with local businesses to have, some shirts and things made, some swag, if you will. Um, you know, Not sure if anyone will be interested in that in the future. Maybe I'll do a poll on this episode if you'd be interested in merch. I don't really expect anyone to purchase it, to be honest, at first, but you know, if if you're close to me, be expecting some First Date Unsolved merch at Christmas time. Um, and I'm so thankful for my friends and family who have supported me through this. I'm thankful for my sister-in-law who has let me record in her home multiple times just so I can get away from my animals. I've mentioned them quite a bit, so maybe I'll share some photos of those guys, little First Date Unsolved mascots, co-hosts, if you will. Um, but yeah, I'm really excited about continuing to do this. Thank you all so much. It's wow, 10 episodes. Wow. I hope to be doing this for like 5 years plus. One day we'll have hundreds of episodes and that'll be cool. But as always, guys, thank you so much for listening. Little old teeny tiny Delaware. If you thought nothing happened here, you for sure thought wrong. Bye, guys.